Police officers of Reddit. Who's the smartest criminal you've ever encountered? Part 2. I'm not a cop, but I graduated with a dude that traveled around to different Walmarts around the country and bought computers cash. He would take some parts out of the computer and then return it, keeping those computer parts and then selling them. He made over $1 million doing this and got caught. Now every Walmart that he did has a separate charges against him, and it's going to take a while for Walmart to build the case up. It's sad to see him go, but he was pretty cool to hang out with, but I think his flashy new Corvette gave it away. This was in the late 90s, early 00s. A guy in my dorm came to school solely to deal drugs. He took out student loans, registered for a bunch of 300-person freshman survey courses where he would never be missed, then literally never went to class. All he did was go to raves and concerts and keggers and sell party drugs. After the first semester, he was suspended. He wrote the usual "I was young and dumb and in over my head" sob story, and got put on probation for a semester. So he had a repeat of the fall. At the end of the year, he was kicked out, and didn't care. He made something on the order of $150,000, in return for about $8,000 in student loans to cover a year of housing and tuition. So far as I know, he was never caught. It may have been a short-sighted maneuver in the long run, but in the short run it seemed fairly genius to effectively use federal loans to start your drug business. I believe this guy was eventually caught, but his idea was impressive. He posted a Craigslist ad and had a bunch of people show up dressed like him. He then robbed the armored car and ran off behind the bank and escaped on an inner tube. I think I read it on TIL. A friend of my brother moved to Israel, where for a period of time it was / acceptable to drive with an American driver's license. He was pulled over for speeding, and when asked for his license, gave the officer his Costco card. Costco is a membership-based retail warehouse in the US and a few other countries. The exchange apparently went something like this: "Officer, Costco." "What is Costco?" "Friend, it's the state I'm from." "Officer, that sounds made up." "Friend, there are lots of states you probably haven't heard of. Have you heard of Arkansas? How about Idaho?" "Officer, I guess not." "Friend, well, I'm from the small state of Costco." The officer didn't have a response and wound up writing the ticket to someone with a Costco driver's license. Friend framed the ticket and still has it hanging on his wall. Reminds me of a family friend of mine. Very funny Australian with an absolutely horrendous Hogan accent. Well, late 80s, he's driving through Texas and runs a red light, and is immediately pulled over by a 250-pound Texan police officer with an equally horrendous accent. The way the stories goes, this man is obviously not the brightest chap. So our friend, when asked about running the red light, gets very apologetic and explains that he gets easily confused because in Australia you know how things are revered down there. Red means go and green means stop. The cog actually let this man go with a warning. "I did not know that." Well, in America, red means stop, so don't make this mistake again. Not a policeman here, but I have a nice story from insurance/debt collectors. There was this guy who was already in heaps of debt. Like more than a lifetime's worth of debt. He proceeded to file several police reports for identity theft up to the point that he got protected from financial checkups. It was a temporary measure that were given to repeated identity theft victims. At the same time, he had reported fake income to the IRS for the last couple of years to between 40 to 60 millions depending on the year. So when he applied for credit cards and loans, they were unable to check his financial credit due to the identity theft protection, but they checked his tax returns, which showed he had a massive income. Got his loans and credit cards, emptied them out and left the country. I heard about one person that pulled a shoplifting scam on a large, popular, and well-known U.S. retail store. They walked in with some cheap nylon product to get one of those. I walked in with this stickers they used to put on returning merchandise. The sticker easily peeled off the product undamaged. They walked to the electronics department, grabbed an expensive box off the shelf and went to customer service. They placed the sticker on the big box and asked if they could return the item without a receipt. Unfortunately, no. Not without the original receipt. Dang it, and they walk out. Customer service even gave the doorman the thumbs up, having just interacted with the customer. This took place before widespread inventory controls and cameras absolutely everywhere. Possible urban myth, but I like it. Somewhere in England there was this car park outside a local tourist attraction. Because it was Cityland, a booth was set up to collect parking fees. It cost something like $5/pound/euros to park. The old man collecting the fees was a pleasant chap, never missed a day of work in 10 years, rain or shine. One day the tourist attraction hears there is nobody manning the booth. Because it is a city-owned lot, they call the city to ask where the parking attendant is. The city says what parking attendant. Old man was never heard or seen again. He built the booth himself and manned it for 10 years. Probably someone who committed a crime I never solved. With that being said, I had a guy use a sledgehammer to smash his way through a wall at a Best Buy and steal a bunch of phones and cameras. He was smart enough to wear gloves and a face mask and not touch anything he didn't have to. Alarms didn't go off until he exited out the back door, which the alarm company gets after a minute or two and takes them like 3/4 minutes to call into us, giving him a good 5-minute head start, so he was probably a few miles away before we got dispatched to it. He clearly scoped out the area before doing his deed too. Smart dude. Edit. So part of the building was built into a hill, so the hole was on the backside of the building along the grade line, but when you're inside the building it was about 8 feet up, so it was easier for him to leave out a door. Also, the wall section where he broke through was hollow cement block. The portion of the wall below that was poured concrete. Not a policeman, but several years ago in Cape Coral, Florida, a man waited on a sidewalk in front of a Publix grocery store and used a taser on an armored car guard carrying 2 bags of money. A getaway driver in a car with stolen tags pulled up. Taser guy and money bags get in and they took off. Never caught. When I first moved to the area in the 90s, a man robbed a bank, jumped on a bicycle that he rode down a footpath through some woods, where he had left a boat on a waterway. Never caught. The story goes like this. A homeowner walks out one morning to drive to work only to find his car missing. He reports the car stolen to police. A few days later, his car is sitting back in front of his house. When he gets inside, he finds a note. It was an apology that said the thief was in dire need of quick transportation and so he borrowed the first car he found with the keys inside. The writer noticed the sticker on the car for the local sports team, and just so there were no hard feelings, he left 4 tickets to an upcoming game in the glove box for the homeowner and his family. So the homeowner and his family attend the game, but when they return home they find the house has been ransacked and all items of value are gone. Edit. Some of you have noted this as an urban legend, which is true. It is also true that some urban legends have a basis in fact. My favorite was the guy who stole a post office mailbox off the street, repainted it, and then put it next to the night deposit box at a bank, and hung an out of order sign on the deposit box. All the businesses came along and dropped off their deposits in the mailbox. Homeless guy in my hometown figured out if he committed some act of petty theft he'd get a night in jail, a warm place to sleep and a hot meal. He'd show up, turn in his stolen goods and that would be that. After a while the police would just tell him to take back whatever he stole the next day. Quite the town character. I'm not a cop, but I would say T.B. Cooper deserves a mention. Dude hijacked a plane, got ransom money and released all the passengers, had the plane take off again, then during the second flight parachuted out of the plane and was never caught. Not a cop. There was an incident in Fargo, North Dakota where a guy wanted to steal electronics equipment. The store had plenty of alarms on it and generally cutting an alarm triggers an alarm, so instead he cut all the alarms. This was before cell phones were really widespread and alarms were usually just connected to the phone line. He found an access point to one of the phone company's big trunk lines. Correction, 9 access points. Massive thick copper cables with tens of thousands of lines running through them. He cut through the whole thing with a circular saw, knocked out phone service to most of the town and robbed an audio store during the ensuing chaos. There were no leads until a tip came in from another town where he pulled something similar. They hadn't been able to ping that to him but had strong suspicions and he'd relocated to Fargo. So the cops paid him a visit. He refused to let them in because they didn't have a warrant, so the cops left to get one without leaving anyone to watch him and he split. When they came back they found a saw coated in copper dust and a lot of the stolen stuff. He was in the wind for a while, but even after he got caught he had another card to play. While being transported between prisons he used a key he'd made to unlock his shackles and climbed out the roof vent of the bus. Edit. Went looking for the news articles but found the case. There's a golf course / country club in my town that has a PGA tournament scheduled in the next couple years. They have a guy repeatedly breaking in overnight and just lounging around and eating food, all on camera. The club refuses to report it so they don't hurt their chances of the tournament coming. I worked with this one guy who had a lengthy record. He had a system for getting released if he got caught. After committing a crime, if the police were in pursuit and he knew he was about to be cornered, he would act insane. His girl would play along with it, telling the police that he was off his medication. The police would arrest him but then send him to a mental ward with papers instructing the ward to release to police once he was cleared. Once he was in the mental ward, he would cause a distraction that would make the person attending the desk with the file cabinet to leave said cabinet. He would then crawl to the file cabinet, look for his release to police papers, and then would literally eat the papers. When the psych evaluators decided that he was stable enough to be released, there would be no instructions to send him to the police, and he would be released to the general public. He did this about 10 times until police officers noticed him back on the streets. This stunt forced the state to change their procedure for detaining mentally unstable suspects. Like, comment, subscribe, share, download, embed, save, gap, yeet. Have a great day, fam.